Welcome to the Gaudium et Spes podcast. Every other week, we bring you Catholic teachings and stories of faith from people throughout the Diocese of Pensacola-Tallahassee. This is the Gaudium et Spes podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Gaudium et Spes podcast. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, please take a look at our previous podcast where Bishop Walk concludes his series on a ministry of the bishop, talking about a day in the life of a bishop. So you want to really check that out. Well, today we continue our series on highlighting extraordinary people within our diocese. And Chez and I have the privilege today of having Mr. David Ell, the new Chief Operating Officer of the Diocese of Pensacola-Tallahassee, here with us. David, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today. Really appreciate it.
It's great for you to be here. So,
David, every guest we have on here, even those that we work with, we put through the same paces. And we read the first line from our great document, which gives our podcast our name, the Gaudium et Spes. Line 1, which goes, "The joys and hopes, the griefs and anxieties of the men of this age, especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted. These are the joys and hopes, the griefs and anxieties of the followers of Christ." So, David, you're a follower of Christ.
Yes,
absolutely. What are you? And you're a poor soul searching for heaven, just like the rest
sinner
of us.
Still trying to find heaven. Absolutely.
What are your joys and hopes, griefs and anxieties lately?
So, as you know, I just recently moved here, so yeah. The anxiety is still finding a house to move into right now. No. So I'm making the drive from Shalimar, Florida, to here every day.
Ooh, doggy.
So hopefully, a lot of novenas to St. Joseph to help us find a house. So that's anxiety, but the joy is Carolyn and I are newly, grandparents and godparents to our firstborn grandchild. Nice. So we were able to go up to Savannah, Georgia last weekend, and our baby granddaughter was baptized. And it was an absolute beautiful ceremony in this old church. It was absolutely beautiful.
What's her name?
Her name is Sarah Talia Ell.
Okay, awesome.
Beautiful.
That's really cool.
Oh, wonderful.
What's the grandparent transition like? Is it like this is the best thing ever? I've heard people are like, it fills them with a joy that they didn't think.
I think it's absolutely incredible, and also being godparents too, right? That's actually special too, to know we're going to be able to help nurture her along her journey, along her path as a Catholic. But it's absolutely incredible. It's very special, and that little baby, it's been a while since we've had a baby in our family. And seeing that newborn, it's truly, you can easily see there's any question of God's existence. Seeing that new baby being there is there's absolutely no doubt.
Cool.
Very
That's
nice.
Awesome. Good stuff.
It is.
What you got going on, Susanne?
I am so excited. It's college football season. I had to say that.
I know. There's a big week 1 for your Gators.
It was. Great win over Utah.
That was a great win.
It was. Yep. And so I'm just excited because it brings more family and friends together. And, I'm looking forward to going to visit my son off at college. And, this is my daughter's, senior year of high school. So we're getting in all of our lasts, with all of that. But it's just a lot of fun. I'm just happy. Life is great for me.
It's cool.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Oh man, it's been a roller coaster. Had the great joy. My wife and I, ever since we got married and started having kids, we pretty much always lived away from immediate family. So date nights have been few and far between. My parents moved up over the summer. I think I mentioned this before. And our oldest 3 kids went for a grandma and pop-up sleepover.
Oh.
And they were gone for like 18 hours.
Oh.
And we were just with the baby. And there was a kid in the house, but it felt like there was nobody in the house. And it was just to ourselves. And it was totally liberating. It was just cool to just sit down on the couch and not have to worry about some kid sneaking down the stairs with their blanket on and saying they need water, they need to go to the bathroom or something like that. It was so cool. The grief was just a few days after that. My wife came down with the mother of all stomach bugs, and I mean, it was just crazy. I turned into a single dad for about 4 days because she was just basically quarantined in her room. But by the grace of God, we got out of it without anybody else getting sick. So she's on the mend. But man, it was a humbling 4 days. It was crazy.
I bet.
We're out on the other side. Life is good. School is good for our kids. So things are going great in the Filippini household.
Well, terrific.
Yeah.
Well, David, I think we all want to know a little bit more about you. So today actually marks your 1 month anniversary
It
here
does.
at the diocese.
Amazing.
I know. We couldn't have scripted this any better. So, no, I guess let's just start out. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and what your family is all about. And
Okay, I'm going to start with my family.
Sure.
My lovely wife, Carolyn, and I have been married for 32 years now.
Nice.
We met in Charleston, South Carolina. I was going to school there at the Citadel, and my wife was going to college at Charleston. And amazing, you got to love God's divine intervention, but we were walking down the street and ran into each other. Just walking with each other's friends, and we met each other, and we fell in love. And
Wow.
32 years. We have 3 children. My oldest, Ashley, is actually the director of campus ministry down at Bishop Moore High School down in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
So she's been doing that for a couple of years. Graduated from Florida State University, a product of CSU down there. Yeah, go Noles.
We're everywhere.
Go Noles. But everybody knows, it's just an incredible ministry down there at CSU, the amount of people that it produces that become nuns and become priests and really contribute to the community here in Tallahassee, Florida, all the way across Florida. It's incredible. My son, Joshua, married to Paula, who just had the grandbaby. Both are captains in the United States Army. They're stationed right now at Fort Stewart, which is right outside of Savannah, Georgia. And then my youngest, Teresa, she actually moved with us from Orlando up to here, but she was actually teaching at Resurrection Catholic School there in Lakeland, Florida. But she's now with us up here in the Pensacola area.
beautiful.
Yeah. So I grew up in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, real close distance away from here. Well, my mom and dad still live and still have family there. My aunt still lives there. But I grew up, went to St. Mary's there, then went to Choctawhatchee High School, graduated. And like I said, I went to the Citadel. And then after that, my wife and I traveled around the world for 26 years in the United States Army. And then after that, retired, did a little bit in the defense industry. And then my last job before here was working with Catholic Charities of Central Florida.
So were you always inclined to join the military, or what called you into that particular vocation?
I think I fall into that. I think they say 70% of the military has some type of relationship with their family being in the military.
Yes.
So my dad, my grandfathers, both, they were all in the military, either for life or for a little bit. And I guess that's one of those things. It was that initial call to service, and it's being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. So I think from a very early age, I knew the importance of that because my parents inculcated that into me. That service is very important to help others, and so it was a drive for me, and I kind of just put my head down, and that's what I was going to do.
Good. So was the Citadel your first choice, or were you looking at other options?
No, it was my first choice. I just decided that that's the school I wanted to go to. It's the school that I applied to, and thank God I got accepted.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful school and a very historic city. Charleston is an incredible city.
So now, does everyone who attends the Citadel, do they have to join the military?
They
Is
do
that
not.
what?
They
no.
do not. So
Okay.
only like 50%. Actually, I don't know what the latest. I don't know what the latest stats are. I know when I was there, it was like 50% actually went into the military, and then 50% did not.
Okay. Now, could they have joined any service?
Any service.
Okay.
It's got some great, like the Marine Corps program there is fabulous. So it is, they can join any service.
Wondered about this. So it's a
Yeah.
private military college, right? Or is it's not associated with any of the. It's not like West
It's not.
Point.
It's actually. It is a state. It is a
school.
state school.
But it's not like West Point. It's not like Annapolis. It's not like the Air Force
They're
Academy.
federally funded. Yeah, they're like
Right.
Annapolis and West Point are federally funded. So it's
Yeah.
it's a different level.
Gotcha.
West
Yeah.
Point, you have to go.
You got to
into
go
the
be an
military.
officer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, what was your first job in the Army? What did you do?
My first job.
Yes.
So I was actually, my specialty was field artillery.
Okay.
So I went to school in Oklahoma, Lawton, Oklahoma, is where I was there for about 6 months, Carolyn and I. And then we moved to Germany. And in Germany, I was a field artilleryman, and we had, it's hard, howitzers, which was cannons, and I was just a platoon leader for 4 different, cannons is what it was. And that's what we started in Germany, and that was just a great assignment. And it was right after the wall fell. So, everything was still being figured out in the military about what sizes we needed to be and our interaction across Europe. So it was a very interesting time to be in Europe, but I absolutely loved it. And that's where our first girl, Ashley, was actually born in Germany.
Wow.
Yeah.
At any stage in your career, did you think about getting out and doing something different, or were you committed to, doing 20 plus years?
I was committed, but I think it's that 10-year mark that everybody looks at, right?
True.
I mean,
I do.
It was that 10-year mark where you start saying, okay, either I'm in it for the next 10 years or this is a good time to transition out. And I weighed and contemplated everything at that point. And I was actually at Fort Bragg, North Carolina then, so in the 82nd Airborne Division. So I was having a great time, jumping out of airplanes, doing a whole bunch of fun stuff. So at that point, it was, I think I really need to stay for the next at least 10 more years.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you went on to have an incredible career, serving in command multiple times, rising to the rank of colonel. I mean, that's just amazing. I mean, that is really the best of the best to get to that stage. So what was your favorite duty station or favorite thing you got to do or favorite location you were in during your time?
I think the favorite location, and Carolyn would say the same exact thing, was Vicenza, Italy.
Oh, yeah.
So after we were assigned to Fort Bragg, we had the opportunity to go to Vicenza, Italy. And that was just an incredible group of people. And being in Vicenza was absolutely, it's Italy, right?
Pretty
You get
close
to travel down to Rome all the time and go to the Vatican. So there was it was just for a Catholic, that was just an incredible opportunity to be in Italy and be able to travel whenever we wanted to, because we weren't on vacation, and of course family comes and visits you, and
Absolutely.
it's just a great time.
I've always wondered, my dad was in the Army in stationed in Germany in the early 70s and talked about his time like exploring, and I always wonder, like, do you get, when you're stationed in places, especially in Europe and stuff like that, you get to interact with the local population? You get to become part of the community at all, or is it kind of like the Americans stay here and we stay over there?
I would say the Italian community. I mean, it's the culture being very family oriented. So the Italians were very welcoming and opening, and they want you to learn their language, and they want you to enjoy their food and that whole culture. So I would say you can get immersed in there as much as you want to be immersed. And sometimes people don't want to get immersed necessarily.
Right.
But yeah, that opportunity is definitely there. And that's the beauty of learning that culture. I mean, the pasta, the espresso, everything.
There you go.
It's pretty incredible.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
I got to ask, though, as Fort Walton Beecher, that's Air Force territory, right?
It is.
What was the pull? Did you ever have like a sense of going in a different branch, or was it always the Army?
No, absolutely. I had a great sense down there, especially. My grandfather actually was the mayor down there for a little bit when I was growing up down there. So I was able to interact with the Air Force leadership actually a lot growing up there, just because of the relationship that the mayor had with the Air Force out there. So there was a heavy influence for me to join the Air Force. But there was also, my grandfather, God rest his soul, who was also a field artilleryman, really helped mentor me along with my dad. And there's the 6th Ranger Training Battalion that's out there.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a part of Ranger School. And, my grandfather would take me out there, and I would talk to the leadership out there, and I just kind of fell in love with that.
That's cool.
It's everything that they were doing out there, and running through the swamps, and, just all that really fun stuff that people like to do. At least I like to do that muddy piece of it, and that's really where I started to fall in love with the Army and said, okay, I think I want to go in the Army.
Yeah.
And one more thing I got to ask, jumping out of planes, is it does it just become like, I think you had 80-something jumps. How many jumps did you do in your career?
82.
80? Okay, that's a lot of times of jumping out of air. Is it ever just like, I wake up in the morning, I'm going to go jump out of an airplane today, just like, and then I'll go have coffee, and then I'll go do my thing. Is it exhilarating every time? Is it terrifying every time?
I would be worried if someone I guess some people aren't worried about it after a certain point, but no, absolutely. You're always nervous, and most of the times you're jumping at night too, right? So there's red lights on in the aircraft, and the doors are open, and a lot of noise, right? And I will tell you, most of the people, they don't say this, but most of the times you're so miserable with all that weight on you and everything, and the rucksack, the backpack, all that stuff is just weighing you down so much. You just want to get out of the airplane no matter what, because it's so heavy. So that's the reason why you really get out of the airplane.
That's the way the military does things. They keep you miserable in your holding place, and they're like, you'll go and face the danger just because you want to stop being miserable in that current situation. That's great. 82 jumps, unbelievable. You're still here. You're still taking it away.
At least, somewhat,
especially you mentioned your faith, and kind of we want to get a sense of, especially in the military, how hard or easy was it to maintain your faith, or was it something you grew into over time? Was your wife Catholic?
That's probably a whole nother podcast right there. Yeah. Carolyn is a great Catholic.
Okay.
She's incredible, and definitely my rock that helps me through a lot of things, and she's incredible. But she was Catholic going through. And, you go to places like Italy, it's easy to practice your Catholic faith. But no, some of the times I would say it does get to be a little bit complicated, especially like Iraq for the first invasion. I was part of that in the Operation Iraqi Freedom 1, right, where we started down in Kuwait and went all the way up. So there wasn't necessarily enough priests at that time to do services all the time. So there had to be a schedule where the priest would fly out to the different bases. So you might be able to participate in the liturgy probably once a month, confession and Eucharist, but it was not as available. So there was challenge. And then I would say on my first deployment to Afghanistan, though, it kind of changed, and that was probably 7 years after that first deployment. But we actually had chapels built on bases and stuff, and had priests that we could really work out a great rotation. And what was really neat was the hospital there, the Air Force actually had a nurse, and she was a nun.
What?
Oh. I know. I was...
I've never heard of that before.
And neither had I, right? And but she actually was a nun, but she was in the Air Force also, reservist, but she was there in the hospital, so it was absolutely great having a nun there all the time while we were there.
That's
wow.
Really interesting.
Well, we all know that, those of us that serve, we wouldn't be who we are without the support of our family all the time back home. And you've talked about your wife and how supportive she has been of you throughout your 32 years that you've been together. So I guess, family, work-life balance, was that a challenge for you? Was it easy for you? How did you work through those issues?
I think, as you know, what's always hard is when you're going away on those long deployments, a year at a time, 15 months. You be gone away from the house, and that's always hard. That spouse at that point, becomes everything to everybody and everything. So that's always difficult because I was out, in Afghanistan and Iraq, doing that mission that was required. But then Carolyn was back home doing everything, and she's such an incredible woman. And one of the things I truly believe is the spouses in our military don't get the credit that they deserve.
Agreed.
A lot of times, you go around and people will shake your hand saying, thank you for your service. And it's like, no, I think you need to shake my wife's hand and thank her for her support of allowing me to do that, because what the spouses go through is absolutely incredible. When the Army and Air Force, Marines, everybody, Navy, when we're all away on those deployments, and that network that they have to come together, those spouses, to support one another, because they don't know what's going on. When you're out there in the areas that you're doing your mission, they're always nervous. They don't know what's going on. And then they also have to deal with the worst of the worst is when somebody is killed, that family has to rally and come together with those other families to help them through and grieve in the worst time of anybody's life. And I can tell you, Carolyn was there for a lot of people, helping them through those times.
Yeah.
When we had soldiers, that paid the ultimate sacrifice in Afghanistan and Iraq, she was the one that was helping them, like all the other spouses were, helping those families through that time. So they deserve an immense amount of credit, thanks, respect. The spouses do so much to really keep that backbone of our military going, because people can't do it without the spouses.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing is that technology has come so far. I mean, when we were first in, you were writing letters or you had calling cards or, Inmarsat, trying to make phone calls with delays going back and forth. And so communication was quite a challenge. I mean, nowadays, FaceTime, Zoom, whatever, there's so much available. So
I would agree. From my first deployment to my last deployment, and the first one was like, just like you said, it was like you're just looking for, it was the news reporters, right? We would go to the news reporers because they had satellite phones. Yes. Like, hey, can I borrow that satellite phone just for 5 minutes, please, so that I can call my family?
Right.
And then the last deployment, it's like, you got FaceTime and everything else, and you're just, it was which was really great to be able to maintain that connection with the family.
Yeah, that's
really
huge.
Yes.
I know. We've come a long way. It's really incredible for all of our members that are serving right now, being able to communicate with their families. Yeah. So, well, good.
I want to hear so much more about deployments and, your service, especially in theaters of warfare. And I think you spent time at West Point and stuff like that. We don't have enough time, though, so maybe we can release a director's cut episode at some point. But,
so we're going to stay afterwards for another half an hour? Okay.
But eventually we do I guess you retired in which year?
2016.
Okay. And then immediately you said you transitioned into defense work, but then eventually found yourself working for the Lord at Catholic Charities. And tell us about that transition and what sparked your interest there.
I want to start a little bit earlier than that, okay? So I was actually working in Tucson, Arizona at Air Force South, which focuses on the Southern Hemisphere, South America, Central America. And I was able to take a trip down into Honduras. There's a place, it's called Joint Task Force Bravo. If you're familiar with Oliver North, that's the area down there where that was occurring. But anyway, we flew down there to that area, and we were doing our Army Air Force things. But on a side trip, we were able to go visit an orphanage that was run by Catholic nuns. And I will tell you, that was where God first tapped me on the shoulder and said, there's more to it. There's more to it. So I started getting that feeling. It was like, okay, there's a lot more to what I probably need to be doing than what I am right now. So I think, I'm a slow learner, and God and the Holy Spirit were tapping me on the shoulder to go do other things. And eventually, I kind of got it, got out of the military, and then went to the defense industry for a little bit. Once again, it wasn't truly that service that I was looking for, and I was yearning to help the church. And the job at Catholic Charities came open to be the COO there, and those couple of years there was very fruitful and incredible, very joyful. And the Catholic Charities across our nations do an incredible work of helping the marginalized and serving in the community, those that are in need.
We had Matt Nee, our director of Catholic Charities, up here from Northwest Florida, and it was an eye-opening episode for sure, just to see the extent, even in our relatively speaking, small population diocese, the amount of assistance, the amount of dollars, the face-to-face interactions, the diversity of services that are offered is pretty, it's not the average Catholic knows everything we do.
And people don't even know, but the organization in America that manages the most affordable housing across the U.S. are Catholic Charities.
Wow.
So think about that. That's pretty incredible, right? Yeah, affordable housing, Catholic Charities.
Which we need. Oh, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do find yourself eventually here a month earlier and stuff, and you're in this role of chief operating officer, and it's cool that we have you, because Bishop just finished these 2 episodes on his role as a bishop and stuff, and in some sense you're kind of coming right alongside him in that whole thing. So maybe perspective on just working with the bishop, what he's like, what's it like to be around him and stuff like that. We hang out with him pretty consistently, but I bet it's an interesting.
The bishop is an amazing shepherd. I mean, he is absolutely incredible. And I will say, coming here for the interview, it was amazing, and there was no question about how much after meeting the bishop and learning about his vision and everything, how much of a privilege and a blessing I knew it would have been to be selected to come here to do this job, which it absolutely is. And the bishop's passion and love and care for every single person in the diocese is amazing. It absolutely is amazing. And
he likes people.
He does. And I will tell you one of the big reasons. I didn't even tell him this yet, so this is a little secret. But one of the things that really impressed me about the bishop was my mom and dad were here one night in Pensacola eating dinner, and they said, "Hi, Bishop," when he was walking by, and he stopped and had a full, long conversation with them.
Wow.
I mean, because he cares about every single person in his diocese, and he's an amazing shepherd.
Yeah.
You're going to be in a leadership role, and this, again, another Director's Cut podcast on leadership and stuff like that, but you are in a leadership role, not going to be, you are in a leadership role. Any leaders from any sector, military, religious, political, economic spheres, which really kind of inspire you, drive you, you look to as a model to follow?
Well, I would say the first one was John Paul II.
Awesome.
And I had the opportunity to actually, when he was doing the visit to the U.S. in the late 80s, I was able to go see him actually in Columbia, South Carolina. So that was absolutely amazing. But I can really love his leadership style and how he began to travel across the world to bring everybody together. And the messages he put out is absolutely incredible. I think Theology of the Body is probably one of the most profound, one of the most important documents that's ever come out from our faith.
I see a lot of our bishop in John Paul II, this idea of like, how do I lead this flock? Well, I go out and I literally meet them and encounter them.
Yes.
And like, for John Paul II, it was like hop on a plane and go all over the world. For Bishop, it's like get in a car and I travel everywhere. Right. And there's something just so impactful about that face-to-face, eye-to-eye contact that's irreplaceable, that just brings people on board and makes you want to follow them and want to listen to them and stuff, which is, what a great model for our church. Thank goodness he had as long as he did, 27 beautiful years with John Paul II. So,
good. Well, you've had your own leadership philosophies throughout your career, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember writing mine as a young 04, and, when I got out as an 06, it was similar, but it had changed too. So, experience and, just all that sort of stuff, changes sometimes the way you look at things and see stuff. So how are you bringing your leadership philosophy then into the job that you're in right now?
I think one of the most important characters of a good leader is care and compassion for the people. There's a requirements. There is a mission of every organization that you have, but you have to understand it's the people that achieve that mission. And if you don't have the care and compassion for them, you're never going to reach your full potential. And it's not about me. It's not about the individual. It's about the organization. It's about us building the kingdom of Christ here on earth to the best possibility we can. And that comes from us being good imitations of Christ, to loving, to seeing Christ in every single person that we encounter, and hopefully they should see Christ in us.
Right.
But I think the leadership style truly is care and compassion, and to make sure that everybody knows that you truly love them. And we're all different, and we all have different ideas, and we all come from different backgrounds, and that's okay. And we're not all going to think the same. It's that diversity of thinking that brings a beauty to everything that we do.
There's a character to Christian leadership, which, especially if you're a fan of military, so you see somebody like Napoleon, you might be like, oh, that's an impressive leader, but did he have care, compassion? Did he care about the individual? Not so much. And eventually kind of led to his downfall. Tons of, examples from that. But a Christian leader has to have those values first and foremost. And especially, you mentioned there's something unique about a Christian leader. I think of Joan of Arc, it's from sanctity, ultimately, that God
Mother
makes
Teresa,
it.
right?
Mother Teresa.
Servant leadership.
Exactly.
Leadership.
Our attachment to God makes us effective more than anything else, which is tough because leaders I don't know if you're a control freak, David, but
we'll find out, won't we? No.
Right? A lot of leaders want to just sink their teeth and this is how it's going to be and stuff like that. Christian leader, you got to take your cues from the Lord and move with the Spirit.
One of the tenets, right, of servant leadership is empowerment, is making sure that you're empowering everyone that works for you, with you, is empowered to do their job. So you don't have to micromanage, and that comes with trust. You have to be able to trust those around you that they're going to do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what are you looking forward to the most in your new role here in the diocese?
Oh, what am I looking at? There's a whole bunch of things.
Okay, tell us.
First off, I just enjoy being able to serve the church. I really look forward to the bishops enacting the bishop's vision. We talk about evangelization, his last pastoral letter, and what he's trying to achieve here is helping him to create a strategy for that, to help the parishes, to help the schools. And that's what we're here for at the Pastoral Center. We're here to help them. We're here to help them with their mission. So anything that we can do, that's what we're here to do. But I really am excited about that and seeing this really catching fire and going out and making sure that all the parishes know that we're here to support them and they're able to, once again, build the kingdom of God where they are.
Yeah. I think it's really incredible that you've sort of come full circle now. Started out here, went to school here in our diocese. You went off, you did incredible things serving our country, and now you're back here again, serving again in a different role, but yet still serving. And I think that says a lot about who you are, your character. And I know we just feel very privileged that, that you're here, that you are in this role. And I know all of us are looking forward to, to serving with you, alongside you as we continue, this journey.
I appreciate that. It's an incredible team. And going around and meeting everybody, how much love, passion everybody has for the service, for the mission here is incredible. So there's a great group of people here, and it's hard to believe it's been a month, right? It's hard to believe. And it really is coming home. It was great coming back here from the first week on and seeing the people, like Father John Kerr, right? I mean, I went to elementary school with him and high school with him. So it's always great coming back and seeing people that you haven't seen in a really long time.
Yeah.
God loves his diocese, everybody. He puts special people here. We're not his favorite diocese in the whole world, but maybe we are. I don't know. Well, speaking of enacting the bishop's vision, our next episode is actually going to be returning to his evangelization mission and vision from last year with sharing the gift. So we're just about coming up on a year anniversary of that episode. So Bishop's going to revisit that, talk about the evangelization letter and where we're at with it. So please stay tuned to that. David, it's been a total joy to have you on the podcast, and we get to see you every day. So this is not the end where we have to say goodbye and stuff. But thanks for taking the time with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
David, today is also the International Day of Democracy. And then this weekend we celebrate and recognize our POWs and MIAs. And so I think it's just visionary that you're here with us today as we celebrate democracy, as we look and recognize our POWs and MIAs, because, your service alongside of all of that, made these things and memories possible. And so, again, just thank you for your service and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for your service too, but it's we really do have to appreciate this great, incredible nation that God has blessed and provided us these privileges that we have today. And it came at a sacrifice from a lot of people. And we always have to remember that and continue with our faith, continue to build it, and continue to strengthen it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you at our next episode. Go Navy, beat Army.
Thank you for tuning in today to the Gaudium et Spes podcast. If you would like to know more about our podcast, please visit gaudiumetspes.net or go to ptdiocese.org and click the button that says podcast. If you listen to the audio version from an app such as iTunes, Stitcher, or Spotify, be sure and rate, review, and comment. If you watched us on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe or leave us a comment there as well. Thank you for joining us.